Good morning. Hi, everybody. Welcome, or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Good to see people arriving. We have a very exciting program for you today. And I'm Miriam Diamond from the Encore Boston Network. And as you arrive, I'd love to invite you to share in the chat where you're joining us from today. So feel free to let us know. We're expecting a nice group of people for this very timely, up to the minute talk today, conversation. Will be very helpful for everybody. So feel free to let us know where you're joining us from. And we have a few people with raised hands. So can people chat, Kendra? I'm asking our technology specialist. Can people put things in the chat?
Yes, they can.
Okay, so feel free to put things in the chat if you would like to. And throughout this program, if any ideas, questions, anything comes to your mind that you would like to share, please feel free. This is the program for all of you, and we want to hear from you. So again, I'm Miriam Diamond. I'm the program director for the Encore Boston Network and the host for today's event. And our organization helps people 50 and over make a difference in the world through meaningful work, through service, through social action. You can learn more about us from our website, encorebostonnetwork.org. That's probably how most of you registered. And if you had a chance to check out the website, you'll see that there's a lot of information, including past events, recordings of past events, and handouts and resources. We have a monthly newsletter that you can easily sign up for. You can become a member for free. I love that. So this is the kickoff event for our exciting and timely fall series on workplaces today. So we're going to give you advice on how to find, get, and thrive at a great job in 2022 and moving forward, because as we'll hear today, things are not the same as they were a few years ago. I want to thank our sponsors for today's program. Our presenting sponsor, which we'll hear from shortly, is the AARP of Massachusetts. I also want to thank the 50-plus job seekers of Massachusetts, the statewide networking groups, as well as the Mass Hire South Shore Career Center, which we'll also hear from. So I let you know that this event is being recorded, and you will get an email in a few days with a link to the recording. So if you missed something, you want to see it again, you want to share it with somebody, you can do that. We'll send you a copy of the slides you'll see shortly and a list of resources. So you don't have to quickly jot everything down. But of course, if you're a note taker, you're welcome to do that. Again, we encourage you to add your comments, react, submit questions in the chat constantly throughout the program. If the closed captioning is something you find helpful, please feel free to use that. Our topic today is 5 Trends in the New World of Work with Kerry Hannon. So what we are going to do is introduce people 50 and over to 5 trends that are changing the world of work, especially since the pandemic. We're going to give you insights into shifts we need to make in response to what's going on, the new changes. And we're also going to build confidence, we hope, in mature workers and job seekers that you can succeed in this new world. Before we get started, I'd like to invite Kara Cohen of AARP of Massachusetts, which is our presenting sponsor. She is the manager of community outreach and volunteer engagement, and she will give us some words about resources that AARP offers. So welcome, Kara.
All right, thanks so much, Miriam. Hi, everybody. I know we're getting some slides up momentarily. Kendra, thank you for putting them up. And thank you, as Miriam said, for joining us today. And I think you'll be glad that you carved out the time to be with us. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about what AARP has to offer for older workers. We do a lot around this, both at the national and the local level. And as you may know, AARP is the largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to helping people 50 and older choose how they live as they age. We're here for you, and we're here for communities. We're working on strengthening communities and advocating for what matters most for families. And we have a focus on health security and financial stability and personal fulfillment. And on the advocacy front, some of our key areas of focus is on lowering prescription drugs, where we had a very big win recently. Also advocating for nursing home and long-term care reform and for financial support for caregivers. So a critical component of our financial stability work is to ensure that the 50 plus can continue working as long as we want to. And to that end, we engage with employers on the value of a multi-generational workforce. And we demonstrate the impact of age diversity on the bottom line. And so we have a core initiative in this regard, and you see the slide about the AARP Employer Pledge Program. We have employers from around the country that stand with you and stand in affirming the value of experienced workers and are committed to developing these diverse organizations. And since we started this in 2012, the AARP Employer Pledge Program has grown to over 1,000 members across the country with an employee reach of 17 million. So this is important work for us, and it's about busting stereotypes about older workers. It's about working toward an age-friendly workplace and a more age-inclusive workplace. So let's go, Kendra, to the next slide. And I just wanted you to see what you can find online. So a bit of our repertoire on the next slide, where you can find information about employers. And it's all listed alphabetical by industry, by location. And it's a very good website to see which employers have pledged to stand with you and support older workers and retain older workers. And in Massachusetts alone, we have over 80 employers who have signed the pledge. Let's go to the next slide. So AARP offers many more resources for experienced workers, and we have the AARP job board, which you can see in front of you. And any company can pay to list on it, of course, but the employer pledge signers have the employer pledge program seal next to them. And as you can see, we also mark jobs that are available for veterans. Let's go to the next slide. There's a good bit more for you to understand in a couple of minutes. So you will see that we have at aarp.org a ton of resources and tools to help you with your job search. For example, there's the AARP Skills Builder for Work, and it's one of the newest resources that we have to help you gain these in-demand skills to be competitive in today's job market. And you'll also find very sort of the moment articles to help you navigate today's ever-changing job market. And most importantly, coming up on September 29th, I want to make sure you know about our online career summit. I think a little bit was cut off on the slide, but you'll get this after the event. And so the online career summit is on September 29th at 4 p.m. and from 1 to 4 p.m., I should say. And it's basically your opportunity to hear about a variety of subjects, resume tips, what to expect during the job application process, salary negotiation, and flexible work options, and skills for future growth in your career. And it's going to include a lot of resources for veterans as well. So that website to register there, if you can see it, it's aarp.org/Career Summit 2022. Check that out. And next slide, please, Kendra. We offer a lot of free webinars that are available on demand, meaning you can watch them at your leisure. And there's a variety of topics, as you can see. For example, there's something very similar to what Kerry is going to talk about today, trends 50+ job seekers should know about in the virtual job market, balancing the new realities of in-person and remote, and how to beat the hiring bots. And if you don't know what hiring bots are, then you probably want to check out that webinar. And then to the next slide. Finally,
really quick, Kara, there's a question in the chat asking if you have to be a member of AARP to access all of these resources.
That's a great question. And I should always impress upon everybody, they're free and open to the public. So anyone can partake of the resources and the events. And so please have at it, take a look at the websites that I've featured here on this slide, because we do a ton of events as well on a variety of topics, both my office here at AARP Massachusetts and around the country. And in the virtual space, you can go to an event in Hawaii if you want to. And so the virtual community centers for you to check out. They're not just job oriented or financial oriented, but we do offer a lot on that because that's our bread and butter is health and financial security. 6:30. So we're kicking off a lot of series this fall that you want to check out here at AARP Massachusetts, and some things that we're doing in person, a lot still virtual. So don't forget to check all these out, and don't forget the online career summit on September 29th. I don't think you'll want to miss that. And don't forget to follow us online as well so that you don't miss our latest and greatest. So thank you so much, and enjoy the event, everyone. You're going to get a lot out of it. So we're so glad to be able to support this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kara. So our discussion today, our program today will be a discussion format. And we're going to first have the discussion, and then we will turn to your questions, but please post your questions as they come up. You don't have to keep them in mind or write them down. Just keep posting them and we'll look at the chat. So
Miriam,
of course I want to welcome.
Can
Yes.
I interrupt you for just a second? I was notified that there was a problem with the chat. And now it seems to be working now. So if you're having a problem still, please, I don't, if you need to email me or whatnot, but it should be open now. So I'm getting a few chats now. So if you can get in there now, please let me know. Thank you so much. Sorry, Miriam. Sorry for the interruption. And sorry for the chat box disabling. I'm not sure why that happened, but Zoom tries to throw me curveballs. So we roll with it. Thank you.
Kendra, would you mind putting your email in the chat so that if people do have problems, they can email you?
Absolutely.
Thank
If
you.
they can see it.
Thank you. And while we're thanking people, I do want to thank Kendra for all her hard work making the technology work so we could even be here. So thank you, Kendra. So our special guest today is Kerry Hannon, as you all know. She's a workplace futurist, strategist, and writer on career transitions, entrepreneurship, personal finance, and retirement. So almost anything you need, you can check one of Kerry's writings or webinars and learn what you need to know. One of her main gigs these days is senior columnist for Yahoo Finance. And Kerry will be discussing her findings on new trends in the world of work with another very accomplished person about the workplace, and that's Cheryl Alexis, who's learning and development partner at the Mass Hire South Shore Career Center. So I am going to turn things over to you because we need to spend most of our time hearing about these new trends and your advice for people in the world of work. So let me turn things over to you, Cheryl, to kick it off.
Thank you, Miriam, for that warm welcome. And Kerry, welcome to our webinar. It is such an honor to meet you and to have you join us today. I'm sure I'm going to learn a ton just by listening to you. Just by way of background, you've written 14 books, countless articles. Your latest one, which I was looking at for audience, In Control at 50 Plus. I love the cover. I love the topic. I loved reading it. And you talk about some of the trends in the new world of work. And maybe you can kick us off by talking about those trends. I see the book in the background and the special relevance they might have for people who are 50 plus. Does that sound fair?
It sounds good, Cheryl. Thank you so much. Well, it's just so exciting to be having a conversation with you. So many thanks. I mean, you're going to share as much information as I will, I think, today, but it's just a delight and always fun to be with this group. I write a lot of books, but man, do I love it. And this book really resonated with me because, hey, this is my cohort, right? Mm-hmm. And I wrote this book to really take a look at some of the big trends that were emerging from the pandemic. And these are fundamentally changing our workplace as we move forward. And as we all very well know, that as the population has changed, we have an aging population, and employers really do need to pay attention to having experienced workers stay on staff because there's simply not as many younger workers coming up. So what is important is that we can grab hold of some of these trends and really take advantage of them and really figure out how they might work for us in facing some of the challenges you have in this age group as you move into the over 50 set looking for work. So quickly, the 5 big trends that I saw and that have emerged are: number 1, remote work. Okay, this is no secret. It had started pre-pandemic, but remote work was something that, younger workers were asking for it. And those of us over 50, we had to kind of beg to get to work from home. I mean, it was like a special perk. And, no one really was sure you were actually getting everything done you were supposed to do. But because of the pandemic, employers figured it out. They realized that we could be productive and that the performance was fantastic and they could save money by not having people in the office. Now, of course, today, this is becoming more of a hybrid thing. But the fact is the genie is out of the bottle. This is not going backwards. And this is hugely important for older workers in terms of the ability to have a global outreach and where you're looking for work. You no longer need to work at the company down the road from you. You can find opportunities across the globe, really, if you're open to trying. And I think this opens the door to all kinds of work. And the second quick thing I'll say, and we can explore it more, Cheryl, is the idea that remote work, a lot of people say they're going to work longer than they actually end up doing. They retire earlier, and that's often because of a health reason or because they have to care for an aging relative and so forth. When you can work remotely, you don't have to worry about having, if it's your own health issue and a mobility issue, that long commute into an office. You can get rid of that. If your employer's not set up ergonomically for you to work in that space, hey, wow, this is an amazing push forward for you to have an opportunity to continue to work. And also, if you need that flexibility to care for somebody, it's fantastic. Secondly, contract work is on the rise. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing. We can get into the ins and outs of that one. But I think the potential for somebody who's looking for, maybe part-time seasonal work, contract work can be a real boon to keep income coming in, to keep having some cash flow, but not having pedal to the metal. There are some drawbacks. We can talk about that in a bit. Entrepreneurship lit up, right? Now, it was started for over 50 before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, so many people, and this is all age groups really, had the chance to do that soul searching and say, what is it that I really want to be doing right now? Because frankly, we were all pretty afraid. It was scary. If you think back, I mean, we didn't know what the heck was going on. We were losing people we loved. So you needed that. And so this idea of, hey, maybe I want to do this now. This is something I've always wanted to do. So entrepreneurship has lit up. Career transition. This used to be for the outliers. Oh, you're such a risk taker. Do you really have enough runway to do that? But now people are going, aha, yeah, I think I've done that, as we just talked about that soul searching. This is really, I'm going to go this direction and I'm redeploying my skills. I'm not necessarily reinventing myself. I'm just shifting. And the final thing, and we all love to talk about this, is lifelong learning is here to stay. And the virtual learning opportunities exploded during the pandemic, and they are just sinking in, digging in more than ever. I know AARP has wonderful online learning resources that Kara just referred to. It just is a wonderful opportunity to be able to stay sharp, stay relevant, and add new skills.
Absolutely. Such great points. I think the 50+ job seekers groups have online learning. We do at Mass Hire. There's Coursera. There's, everything. You're absolutely right. That is here to stay. One of the questions, when going back to the remote work option, why are employers still so resistant to it? People really want it. And as you said, once you get used to not having that commute, you can be so much more productive. You can be there to get your packages so the porch pirates don't take them. You can, I was taking care of an elderly mother and still working, but employers seem to want everybody to rush back into the office. How do we resolve that tension? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that there is the hybrid situation I do see that emerging. Yeah. And I honestly understand why employers still think in that traditional mindset that, out of sight, out of mind. They want you there. They want you to see that you're doing stuff. It's just shifting back into the comfort zone. But frankly, a lot of really forward-thinking employers get it. They understand that and I don't think the door is shutting on remote work at all. And I think that you just need to indicate, when you're looking for work, even if you look at the online job boards, the number of remote positions is still exorbitantly high. And so, but it may still be that you need to talk to the individual hiring manager, to the individual manager you report to about how's that going to work for you. And I do think it's important to have some face time. It's important to get in and connect in person with people whenever possible, if you can, but it's not necessary. For a younger worker, I honestly think it's pretty imperative to be in the office in a way. That onboarding process for younger workers. I loved my 20s and 30s being in the office. I made friendships and relationships that have lasted my entire life. And those bonding and that learning is important. But for us over 50, you couldn't get me back in an office for anything today. And so that's like I draw the hard line. I'll come in and visit. I'll come up for meetings, but I'm not working there because I'm a grown up. I know how to do this. And and so I do think it's a matter of continuing to prove ourselves that we can do it. But the fact is, Cheryl, the ability to work remotely is so great in fighting ageism in another respect, because people still judge a book by its cover, right?
Yes.
There's no getting around it. It's a human nature thing. And when you're in the office and you're right next to somebody who's a couple decades younger than you, it's subliminal, but that ageist thinking creeps in. There's just this comparison. When you're working remotely, it's not so front and center. And so you can really be judged on your performance and your productivity, but you have to work at it. You have to stay connected. You have to be up to speed with how to communicate effectively through the technology. And that's something some workers may be resistant to, or, but that is non-negotiable, because if you want to be a successful remote worker, you need to step it up and you need to make sure you're connected.
Yep. You mentioned ageism, and it certainly seems to be alive and well. And I love the idea of remote work as one way to fight that. Do you have other thoughts about what people can possibly do to fight the ageism that really does exist? Should we run out and color our hair? which I do, by the way. Which I definitely I love gray in the men, but I don't love it on me. Do we? To what extent do we get in shape, lose weight, get a professional looking do? I mean, some people want to sue. I used to practice law. I don't think that works a lot, but any ideas on what, if anything, people can do to fight ageism? Or do you just say, hey, I'm going to shake the dust off my feet and move on to somebody else who values me?
Well, this is such a broad subject, and you are absolutely correct. It is entrenched in our culture. Not just our workplace. It is just where it is. And as I said, this has got to shift as the population ages. It's inevitable, right? This is just profound changes in our global population. So this is going to happen, but there are things we can do today. Absolutely. First of all, if you're looking for work, I love, what AARP does with the employer pledge. And there's some other programs similar, but not as extensive as that program. Look for companies that value older workers. I mean, you need to, pay attention to some of those job postings for the words, the language they use. Really, a lot of hiring managers are in their 40s, and they're going to hire people in their 40s because that's the sweet spot, right? Yeah. And so generations.org had done a study showing just that, they showed that people, they didn't value, hiring managers said they had no skills, the people over 50 or over 45, but once they actually had the jobs, they're like, hey, they're performing better. And so that was an interesting study from last year, but here's what you need to do. You would ask me specifically. A lot of people ask me about the dyeing the hair, the Botox, whatever. I'm like, go for it. Go for it. If that's what you want to do, by all means, but what you really, and this sounds corny, but I honestly firmly believe that getting in physical shape is what it's all about. I mean, when you're physically fit, you bring this energy, this can-do spirit, this positivity. People don't know what it is. They're like, I want to be around her. I want her on my team, but they don't know what it is. And it's not like bench pressing. I walk my dog a couple miles a day, whatever it is you do that makes you, and eat with an eye on nutrition. And it sounds like, oh, Kerry, seriously, that's going to fight ageism in the workplace. Well, it does help. I'm serious, because, a picture tells a story. And so if you can present yourself in a way that is vibrant, that's energetic, that's engaging, important. Any other thing. Secondly, think about your language, how you speak, we often self-deprecate ourselves. I mean, I was actually in a meeting, and the cool thing is with this job at Yahoo Finance, which I got in January, which I love, love, love. My manager is a couple decades younger than me. And I'm doing all the stuff I've told all the workers all along. I've had to figure this out. And I've had to stop myself from saying, they'll say, how do you know so-and-so? And I want to say, oh, we've known each other for 30 years. We started. I know, but
that's a dead giveaway.
I just zip the lip. I'm like, oh, we've known each other for a long time.
Yep, there you have it. There you have it. We met at the the skydiving club.
So it's little ways that and like things like there was new technology involved in this job. And so instead of, I tell everyone, make sure you're up to speed on all this stuff, but my manager wasn't responding to me, right? I'm like sending texts, emails, what the heck? I'm like, hello, I'm in Washington, you're in New York. Finally dawned on me, she communicated through Slack, which was the in-house community. Well, I had never used Slack before. So I was like, quick. And I never said a word. I just quickly figured it out and shifted. Yeah. I should have had that conversation up front, so I didn't look like some dinosaur that wasn't responding to her. And then the final thing in that is that I had to she told me we're going to work in Google Docs, and I'm like, okay, great, but I write in Word. That's what I've always done. That's how I've always done it, and it works. Isn't that classic? That's what we say, right? This is how I've always done it,
and it works.
And she's like, no, you don't understand. We work in Google Docs. So I'm like, okay. So I realized a good friend of mine, Mark Miller, who works at Reuters and has a group called Retirement Revised. I said, Mark, I knew he had switched to Google Docs. I'm like, help me. I know you love it. He says, quick, screen share. He jumps on with me and he gave me a tutorial. So all I'm saying, these are little ways. And so I never complained. I made the shift, and I have my buddy who's my age on the other side of the fence who's helping me. And
I love that. I love that. It's like, quick, give me a tutorial. And especially because when I ask my kid, who's a college student, hey, teach me, can you teach me whatever it is? Most of the time she's on the floor laughing at me. So, what do you mean, Mom, you're not using Snapchat and whatever it is?
Yeah.
And the other thing, now, I don't know what your thoughts are. YouTube is great for tutorials. It's
yes.
How do I do Google Docs? How do I set up my Chromebook? How do I do whatever it is? And YouTube has saved my life on some occasions.
Yeah.
So hopefully
it's so
for you
true.
too.
And we can, like when I was asking about Google Docs, I said something to my husband. He goes, why don't you Google it?
Yeah.
I was like, well, okay. But the point of all this is that we need to remain nimble. And that the final thing I'll say about ageism, and especially if you're going into an interview, this is really important. And it should be embedded in us, is try to use the word curious, just curious, because it indicates that you're willing to try to do things a new way, that you're looking to learn, that you're interested in what they do, that you're looking forward, not backwards or staying still. Yeah. I love that word. And I just think it's subtle in a way, because it's just something that but it's a mindset. It's how we should all be approaching the job search and our jobs today. Like always like going, oh, that's really cool. I'd like to learn more about that. But, we so often get fearful that we're going to make a mistake, or we're going to fail, or we're going to be asked to do something we don't know how to do. But
Yeah.
frankly, if you're curious, you're going to find out, like I learned how to use Google Docs. You're going to find out how to do it.
Well, that actually takes me to a little bit deeper, to maybe something that's a little more sensitive for us. In preparing for this, you've talked in your book about how people over 50 don't always understand the fundamental changes, the ones you described a few minutes ago. And my tough question is it that we don't understand them, or that we don't accept them and don't want to adapt to them? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm stereotyping inappropriately here, but you know, I used to work at McDonald's. Ray Kroc started McDonald's at age 53. So I've always had this mindset, you can do anything over 50 that you set your mind to. But how do you, have you seen people, you know, enough people embrace that curiosity, that desire to learn, that desire to evolve, and, you know, embracing technology? Remember when iPhones came out a few years ago, and I'm at work, and I'm using my regular whatever flip phone, and my colleague starts doing this with the you know, the icons, and I look at it and say, what is it, and what planet did it come from? And you know, then you have to kind of make yourself learn. So for people who maybe are a little reluctant or a little fearful, or they're not quite curious yet, do you have any suggestions for them?
Yeah, okay, Cheryl, thanks for bringing that up. I think that's really true, because what happens to many of us is that we get stuck in a moment. We want to replicate our old job if we're seeking a job, or, you know, we want safety. We want to just do, we know how to do this, and this is how we should be marketing ourselves. This is how we should be presenting ourselves to the world in the job search. But in fact, your job may not exist anymore. Things are changing so rapidly that you really need to be open. And as I talked about quickly earlier, to redeploying your skills, to looking at new ways of what you've always loved to do. And this goes back to that inner soul searching of really, I'm not trying to be like, oh, you know, self-helpy, but this is critical that you take the time to write in your journal or write somewhere about what it is do you like to do? What turns you on? What are your best skills? You might not even recognize them in yourself because you're so used to them. Ask friends and colleagues. Look at old performance reviews. What are the things that were told to you that people see in you, and try to really embrace those and own them, really own them, and take some pride in that, but be willing to take some chances, be open to some invitations. I mean, for example, when I told you all about Yahoo Finance, I didn't go out looking for a job. The recruiter found me on LinkedIn, and it became a dance, and we worked this out. It was amazingly a wonderful opportunity.
Wow.
Was I like going like, oh my gosh, should I do this? And then I thought, well, why not? This invitation just came to me. Why not give it a go? You know? And so we often think that we're locked in a linear career in the way we were in our prior, like in our initial stages of our working lives.
Yeah.
I think this stage is different. And there's no ground rules. There's no playbook, except maybe my book. But they,
Your book's a great playbook.
But we really need to say, okay, I'm going to try this, and then maybe I'm going to try this, or I'm going to do, and realize that things you might only do for a couple of years and then shift to something else. But don't get locked in that this is a momentous choice I'm making right now, because now I'm going to be stuck doing this. Going, you're not. If it doesn't work out, it's going to ruin your career. It's not. You know, you've already built up this great reputation. When I wrote a book a number of years ago that called What's Next? Follow Your Passion and Find Your Dream Job. And I went back and interviewed all those people a couple of years later to update that book in a paperback version. And a third of them had switched to doing something different. So, I mean, here you go. I mean, people, this is a period of time that's yours to embrace and to try new things. And so I would just encourage everyone at this stage to be kind to themselves, but also, open up their thinking, let some breathing room in and try. Just raise your hand and say, I'm going to give this a shot.
I love that. I love that approach. It's almost like you have to sort of revert to the curiosity you had as a child. What's this about? Or let me try that. And if you don't have, you can go to your children or grandchildren. They'll have that curiosity and drag you along. So I love your suggestion. One idea you have in your book that I think is great is this idea of returnships.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're part internship, part apprenticeship. Can you talk a little bit about that and how maybe we could persuade somebody to establish a returnship for us?
Yeah, I think that it's a really interesting movement that has been gaining some traction. Not huge, but I think, we've got iRelaunch. Carol Cohn has done a nice job with that. Goldman Sachs has sort of been a leader in this area. I think there's one called Path Forward. I have a couple in my book that I mentioned. But what I love about these, it's also kind of like being a boomerang. And boomerang employees, this is a lot of, this sounds counterintuitive in a way, but I've been reporting a bit on this year so far, is that a lot of people did, many, I should say, workers took early retirement packages during the pandemic. They were offered them. Employers were like, especially that first year, they were freaking out. So, and then they realized this year, because inflation, and Rocky in stock market's been a little volatile, shall we say?
A tad bit.
Yeah. So people are like, you know what? I want to get back to work. I want to go back to work. And so I've seen this movement of people unretiring, and some of it is boomeranging back to their former company as a consultant. Sometimes it's full-time, sometimes it starts as a project and builds back into a full-time position again. So we're seeing that because it's a tight labor market right now. And even with the numbers that we're seeing, we still got 2 jobs for every 1 person seeking work. Now, that doesn't mean you can get the job. I'm just saying that they're out there and they're looking for experienced workers. And I often say that's probably why I was offered this position, because they wanted someone to come in who could do the job right now. So if you can step in as a returnship, coming back to a former employer, or, coming back to your field again, to an employer who knows you, who's worked with you, these are really, so it's worth seeking out. It's also worth, if there's a company that you want to work for. And I always say to people, who do you want to work for? It's not who wants you to work for them. Who do you want to work for? So think about your mission. What do you care about? What company? I mean, the thing that makes someone love their job, I wrote a book, actually was co-branded with AARP about Love Your Job. And one of the things that people really love about their job is the mission of that company or that nonprofit. So look for companies who you believe in. And I'm telling you, if you go in and you can get an interview there, you wear that on your sleeve. People love that. They want employees who are engaged, because it's a huge problem in the workplace is employee engagement. And if you can show that, that is really important. So I know I've gotten a little off the path there, but that's what I really believe in.
Great suggestions. I want to remind our audience, please put any questions you have in the chat. I'm going to start getting to those soon. So just chat away and I'll see them. But Kerry, I have one more question that has come up. I don't know if well, let's see where this goes, but I love the ideas you have for people who are already equipped to work in a knowledge-based economy. We have Wi-Fi at home, we have high-speed internet, we know how to use Microsoft Office. But what about the people who aren't there? Maybe they did blue-collar work, or they worked in the trades, or they lifted preschoolers all their lives, and now or senior citizens in a rehab, and now their bodies are giving out. They can't be welders anymore. They can't be electricians, fishermen. Any ideas for those folks? It seems almost like the knowledge economy has left them behind.
Yeah, that is such a great question, and it's a huge issue.
Mm.
It really is, because I'm a big I focus a lot of my work is on the knowledge worker,
Right.
and I've also we know that these knowledge workers have the opportunity to come back into the workplace if they've taken retirement, to find positions by retraining in this way. And and we are working longer because many jobs are knowledge-based jobs, but there's so many wonderful jobs that aren't. So what I say is this is tricky. I think that any kind of training program that you can get involved with, you are going to probably have to add some new skills. But one of the most important things to do when you're job seeking in like that is, and this is probably good for anyone, but I do think it's important if you're feeling like I'm left out of this knowledge. I don't really like working on the computer. I actually like being engaged with people. I want to get back working with a team of colleagues, whatever kind of work it might be. Do that thinking about, I encourage a little exercise of people to think about their first jobs, things they did, that and what it is they loved about that job. Like for me, I sold Avon door to door. Now, I was terrified because I was very shy, and who knew that? But what I got from that job that I've carried through all my other jobs is whenever I made that people connection, whenever I met a new person, I felt enriched. So think of like, what is the detail about that job? And then write that down, because then you're going to start looking for some kind of work that might fit there for you. Same thing with hobbies. Like if there's a hobby that you do, is there some way to get involved in work in that hobby? And it doesn't, and it may be using sort of the skills you did as you're in your work, in your trades work, but maybe not as physically intensive. But see if there's ways around the edges you can stay involved in the things that you love. And your expertise is still valued, but you will probably, I mean, it's really imperative that you are willing to learn some new things. You really need to step out of your comfort zone a bit.
I think.
But it's networking. It's talking to people. Really, I'm sorry, that's the root of it. Is networking. I always say is one letter away from not working. So get out there.
I love that. I love that. And you're so right. You're so right. And people are sometimes reluctant.
Yes,
to network.
talk to everybody I'm looking for something. What do you know? And you might find you start doing something even on a volunteer basis, and you go, this is really cool. I love doing this. And that could even turn into a job for you.
Yeah, Karen Sousey from the 50 Plus Job Seekers, we did a workshop a few months ago about networking in the summer, because everybody knows those of us in New England go inside once the weather gets cold. So you better get out to the dog park or the beach, or the concert, the town concert, whatever it is, because in just a couple of short months we're all going to be hunkering down with the heat on in our house. Let me look at some of our questions in the chat and see what people have to say. One person asked, what are the industries and positions that are increasingly hiring older people? Which of them are open to remote contract or part-time work? I can just say from my experience, I used to work as a lawyer at McDonald's. We went after older people. We called it the McMaster's program. And one time there was a power outage in our store, but there were still products like cookies and things you could sell. Well, the younger kids, the teenagers, didn't know how to sell it, because if there's no picture on the cash register, they didn't know what to do. But the older folks whipped out pen and pencil, added it up, and made sales. And so certain companies really want you, as you said, but do you have any thoughts about his question? Who's open? And it may come down to what you just said a minute ago, networking, to find who wants you.
Yeah, you might find some surprises. I think there are great opportunities at nonprofits who often, are looking for people with experience and with talent that are, you might not get sort of the salary level you had been at before, but who cares? You know, if you're doing work you love and you're making a difference, that should really matter. It also can be a springboard forward if you want that, depending on your age. You know, when you're 50 to 60 is different from 60 to 70, you know, when you're looking for work. So, you know, we kind of lump everyone together, but not everyone's looking for full-time pedal to the metal stuff. The industries that are growing, that have opportunities, are education and healthcare, right? These are in tech, right? But we're saying, okay, maybe we don't want to push people necessarily into the tech thing, but healthcare, man, there's so many ways to slice or dice that. There's so many, you don't have to be a medical doctor. You don't have to be a nurse. There's all kinds of ways to get involved in that huge field. And the same with education. There's a real dearth of educators. And if you can somehow find a way to step in there, you probably don't need a master's or any of that. There's ways to get involved in education on lots of levels. So I think that's one way to think about it. There's a platform out there that started a few years ago called Get Set Up, and they actually, it's a learning platform for people over 50, and the instructors are all over 50. So that's an education way that you can, can think about. But there's lots of other examples. I think those are good ways to sort of, I love the occupational handbook. As I mentioned in my book, the Department of Labor has a great sort of synopsis of different jobs, of growing fields where there are opportunities and what kinds of certificates you might need to do those jobs. But again, it's reaching out, and I mentioned in my book, and I harp on this a lot. It's still very true. Jobs to ride the age wave. So jobs that are springing up every day. There's new kinds of things as we move forward, and it's people in their 50s and 60s doing products and services for people in their 70s and their 80s with longevity. The longevity market is huge, and so there's all kinds of things. Being a senior fitness instructor to a massage therapist that is expertise in an older, softer massage. That's for, my mom had I paid for a massage therapist to come to her in her 80s and in her 90s a lot. And it was just a gentle massage, but that human touch meant so much to her. And so, and that's a lot of, so those kinds of things, a move manager, helping people downsize. So some of these are smaller jobs, some can be bigger.
Yeah, I love that. I put in the chat a website, aisne.org, AISNE, Association of Independent Schools of New England, because as you said, education presents great opportunities. Sometimes the public schools want certain credentials, or they're a union environment, so they're going to offer opportunities to other people. But the private independent schools have a lot more flexibility in terms of who they hire and what you can do. So I put that in the chat. Somebody else is asking that, they've got a lot of gaps in their employment. They were doing elderly care, maybe you're doing child care, maybe for whatever reason. I talk about a hybrid or functional resume to combat that. And I run a workshop with that. I'll put my email in the title in the chat for this person, but do you have any other thoughts on dealing with gaps in employment that may be common for us?
Well, I'm a big believer in reframe it, because the things you were doing as a caregiver, you've got to put those into business language, right? You were a patient advocate, you were a financial manager. In my case with my mother, I also was a musical director, because I used to have to, get her singing Broadway tunes because she had dementia, and it was a way to get her off on a different happy path. And so you never realize some of these skills we have, but think hard about the duties as a caregiver you may have had, or any of these gaps if you're raising children, or whether it was an aging relative. It all comes down to a really important skill set that you have to realize that, and I love that expression, own it. Say, yeah, I was juggling, all these caregivers for her, or I was the caregiver, or I was paying the bills, or I was dealing with the health insurance issues. My gosh, these are big jobs. These are big jobs. Yeah,
the prioritizing and handling multiple priorities, that certainly seems like it would be a great attribute to bring to an employer.
Yeah, and Cheryl, coming out of the pandemic, I must say, because employers came into our homes, we were on Zoom meetings, people saw what was going on in people's homes, and employers got in just a window into some of the challenges and the need for flexibility and understanding the stress, especially caring for aging relatives. That's never been a cool thing. I mean, it's okay that you're taking your kid to the soccer game, but taking your mom to a doctor's appointment is not as somehow people are afraid to tell their employers that they have that extra set of duties. So they saw this, and I think, and all of people who they themselves were experiencing it because they were at home, they're much more sensitive to it. So talk about it. Don't hide it. Be, say, be proud of the work you did doing this.
Yes, great. Great advice. Great advice. Another question is, where can I apply for part-time remote work, not having much luck? A couple of thoughts. usajobs.gov is a website for the federal government work, and you can actually search for remote jobs. And then I think you're right. When you're new to a job, you want to be in the office, you want to learn your colleagues, your work, but a lot of people are hiring remote, AAA. They realized they had to go remote. People had, as you said, with the pandemic, and now the call center people, it's right at home at your desk. Do you have any other thoughts on?
Well, two other resources that I would look to. There's a flexjobs.com, which is a really great website.
Can you put that in the chat?
And I'm a big fan of the founder of that company, and she's done a wonderful job. And then Flex Professionals is there in the Boston area, and they're here in the Washington, D.C. area. They have a lot of remote, virtual, part-time positions, and they're just two that I'm a big fan of both of theirs. There's plenty. I think retirementjobs.com, Tim Driver, I think, has been involved in this group. And his website has some great part-time options. And Kara mentioned earlier, the AARP jobs website, you can search, I believe you can search for remote part-time jobs as well. But again, you can go to the employer's website. If you think of who do you want to work with, go to their direct career center on their website, see what jobs they have posted. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn has some great, if you're on LinkedIn, you can check, you're looking for part-time remote work, you're looking for, there's all kinds of boxes that, and you can sign up that you get these job postings every day of things that are available for what you're looking for. So LinkedIn has really done a great job building out their job board, and employers, you can apply directly through LinkedIn using your LinkedIn profile, which is wonderful, because I think our profiles sometimes on LinkedIn are much better than our resumes, because they build out a whole picture of who we are.
I agree. And you can do that even if you don't subscribe to the premium LinkedIn service. You can do that.
I actually don't subscribe to the premium. And then you can say you're open to calls from recruiters, and nobody needs to know it. It's private, it's behind a wall. But you can check all these really specific things of the kind of work you're looking for. And you'll get a little email every day. And I think some of the other job boards like Indeed have similar things that you can get once you are registered there. I don't know how exactly each of them has a different protocol.
Yeah, and we're seeing some more job postings where they'll say hybrid opportunity or remote work available. Somebody's asking, what do you do in an economy where jobs seem to be slowing down the way they are now? For a while, it was the job seekers market. And this person is apparently saying it looks like jobs are slowing down. I don't know. I see tons of job openings.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. There's a lot of talk that that's going to happen. And because of the raising the interest rates and all that sort of thing. But I honestly have not, there's still a huge demand, but it's of a certain cadre of worker often, but there's definitely, and you just have to tap dance. I mean, you got to just keep trying. You can't
keep trying. Keep talking. As you said, keep talking.
Two things that we didn't mention earlier, Cheryl, that I'm a big believer in also is career coaching. and groups, job hunting groups. I think if you can find a little network of other people looking for work that you can join together with, it's really helped to support each other. You can suggest ideas, you can keep each other accountable to that job search, because your friends and relatives really get sick of hearing about it. So if you can, so that's super, that's really can be quite helpful. And the other thing is, career coaching doesn't have to be expensive. The job centers actually offer some free coaching. You might look around and find other, maybe you all have that as part of your program too. I just think coaching is, if you can get an unbiased person who does not know you to take a look at your resume and talk to you, they see things that you don't about what you could be doing, and you go, really, I didn't think about that. So I do think those are two things that people ought to pay attention to.
Great points. Somebody mentioned LinkedIn tips, and Mass Hire is the statewide, as you just mentioned, employment resource for job seekers. There are tons of workshops. They're all free on using LinkedIn and how to set up a profile, on networking, on building a resume, on interview skills. I know Karen Salsi's organization, the 50+ job seekers, they have the same thing, and a lot of them are virtual. You don't even have to leave your house. And the AARP, that career, it seems like they have a lot that I wasn't aware of, and certainly that, what did Kara talk about earlier? The Career Summit coming up on September 29th, I think would be ideal. Maybe Kerry, you can share what you're going to be covering at that summit.
Yeah, sure. So just checking, Kerry, National is organizing this. I'm not sure if you're involved in it at all or not. Sometimes you have been over the years, not this one, right? So not this time. So it's going to be over the course of 3 hours, and people will have a chance to choose what virtual rooms they want to go into and what topics they want to visit on and get resources on. So it's a whole variety of topics, like I said earlier, and you can just come in for part of the time if you don't have the full 3 hours that you can dedicate to it. So it is pretty amazing, and they make it better each year, and it's free to anybody, whether you're a member or not. So if you have the time, it'll be worth your while, just like this event.
I hope Kerry's involved. I'd love to hear from her again. And Kerry, you gotta let us know when you're going to be speaking publicly again, and we have to have you back.
Thanks. I do have a webinar that I did earlier this year. I think it was in June, up on AARP's website about job hunting. I can share that link with others here, I don't have it to type in the chat right now, but I can send it along to you all, and you can, if you want to put it on your website. But AARP was super. We did a wonderful webinar about job seeking.
Yeah,
That would be wonderful. Yes.
Yes.
And I would just Google it. Google Kerry, Hannon, and AARP, and you'll find all the good stuff that we've done with you over the years.
Yeah, AARP's been very good to me.
So many wonderful resources. I thank you all so much. Feel free to put in the chat. I'm saving the chat. Any resources any of the panelists have. I think we have a very educated population here in participants. Kerry would love to feel free to send to us at Encore Boston Network any other links, also Kara, that we can put in our follow-up emails for all of you. I want to thank you all so much. Kerry, as you can tell, very knowledgeable author, knows what's going on up to the minute. This is the hot stuff you're getting right off the press. And check out her Yahoo Finance writings, her other periodicals, her books in Control of 50+, and many other books. Kerry, would you be kind enough to give us your website link? And also really want to thank Cheryl Alexis for your wonderful experience and expertise. If you could give us your Mass Hire website, I think all of us want to know what's going on there. Many thanks to Kara Cohen and AARP and all the wonderful things that you are doing over there for us. 50+ job seekers in Massachusetts, of course, the Mass Hire South Shore Career Center itself. All of you for this wonderful, enlightening discussion. If any of you want to put in the chat, any participants, what you got out of today, you're welcome to do that. Any actions you're going to take. The enthusiasm and the support that I heard was just wonderful. We will send you the link, the recording, all the wonderful slides that Kara showed us, anything else that we have, we'll be glad to show you. Please check out the Encore Boston Network website. This is a kickoff, as I said, to a fall that's going to be very busy with wonderful programs for people our age wanting to make a difference in the job field, both in our jobs that we have, or looking for new jobs, or even service. Upcoming programs include something on identifying your special strengths and how to use them, honing in on your goals through vocational speed dating, an age-friendly employer panel, and a lot of you mentioned retirementjobs.com. They're one of our sponsors for that. And for something different, but that we also want to know about, we have a program coming up shortly on Medicare and what you need to know as the open enrollment starts. So again, I want to thank you all so much, all the participants, all the panelists, all the sponsors, and I wish you all continued success with everything, all your endeavors.
Miriam, it was a pleasure. And I so enjoyed Kerry, Kara, all of my panelists. This was really fun. We need to do it again.
Thank you, Cheryl. You were amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerry.
We'll have an update next year with a newer trends.
I'm sure there will be some.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care.